Hello everyone, welcome to the first session of Unix Shell Scripting. Here we will discuss the actual structure and intention of the course and uh, means how we will be proceeding with the course. The reason why I opted shell scripting is though we are basically more into our cloud and Oracle, shell scripting is one of the primary or you can say one of the important skills that every DBA database administrator needs to make his life comfortable in day-to-day activities. Also, to start with any scripting knowledge, you need to know shell scripting, which is the basic. Coming to the course content, the course is designed in such a way that we will basically start understanding the scripts from the basics. I will definitely consider that though you got some basic knowledge on scripting, Unix platform or anything related to Unix, but I will consider that I am speaking to the target audience who has no knowledge on Unix. For Unix platforms, command-based interactions is very important, and that is why you need to know shell scripting. Command-based interaction is very important for the with the server. So here in the course, we will consider explaining you each and every point crystal clear before we jump into the tools development. So I hope I'm very clear in the beginning itself. This particular course is not for audiences who want to become expert only at shell scripting. But this course is for the existing database administrators who wanted to make use of their scripting skills into their day-to-day activities. But this does not mean that it's only for DBAs. You can use this knowledge for other domains too. But I will be inclined towards DBA. Coming to the first chapter, which is basics of shell scripting, bash script. So what is bash script? Why did we choose bash script? What is that included in the bash script? How do you basically categorize different kinds of shell programs and how do you execute them? And how do you basically build one small script? That is what we call it as a building block. We will look into this everything in details. And then how do we run these and the different ways of how you actually create it and how do you debug the scripts. Next we will consider on bash environment. Then it will completely about GNU where we will be seeing in case if you wanted to do an interactive editing between the user and the interface. Awk is another one which is very important and you can say this is a very big chapter. It will be a awk. If you are looking into awk, then it will be another separate course like that vast. It's a way by which you can actually control many things inside the script. Probably you can say awk is something which is again a different course that huge is awk. The conditions and interactive scripts. It is very important part of scripting as conditions are always there as if in case if you want a non-interactive scripting and it has to be automated based on the results of something else. Then comes repetitive tasks and variables. If you have the same job, some job to be done 10 times or more, definitely loops from the basics of C language to IO input output redirection. And then how do we redirect to next shell script? And since there are loops here, if you want to break and continue on some conditions, these will be covered in here. Then comes our functions and signals. In here, it is very important. You need to know what is function. Functions are something that we will take some input into it and then it generates one output and give it back. It is very important as if we want to use a program or a set of commands again and again, probably in a loop or for loop or it can be outside the for loop. Based on a condition, yes, you have to definitely write some functions. Next comes tools and development for DBAs. Here we will be seeing the means we will be looking into some storage. We'll be building some uh, scripts where you can check your storage check, like table space utilization of a database, like considering table fragmentation or anything, how to automate your backup, how to refresh your tool, how to user creation, and all this will be covered in here. So let us start with our first session, which is bash script. And this will be the very basic. And I expect you means if before starting the course, you need to have an Oracle Enterprise Linux or any Red Hat Enterprise Linux along with a database installed in it. Uh, this is a prerequisite of this course, and I expect you already have an Oracle environment ready with you. Shell this In this topic, the shell programs, it will completely deal with introducing you to the world called shell. And what is exactly a shell program? If you write a shell script or a shell program, what does it actually have? And how does it actually execute? Is what we are going to discuss in here. The first two paragraphs is completely speaking about one single statement. Shell scripting is nothing but executable file which has got set of commands that will be executed line by line. Like if you log into your database instance, and in here if you give date, it is throwing the output, or it is, this one is a predefined variable. I will tell you how this is done. And this will be throwing the output of the server. And if you need to know the host name of the server, you need to write host name. These are the predefined ones. If you need to know the space of your server, df-h, and it will show you the space of the server. But if you want all these date, hostname, and all these to be run in this at a single click, means here if I'm typing date, then hostname, then df-h, I need to write and then press enter each and every time. If you want to do this in a single script, then you need to write all these lines inside a file and then execute it, and it will basically do the same. So coming back to our presentation, what are the shell types? There are different shell types like sh or bourne shell, bash, which is an extension of sh, which is, you can say, an advanced version of sh. You have csh shell, you have tcsh shell, or 10xc shell you can also say, and which is also an extension of your csh shell. You have corn shell also. So what is a shell? Shell is nothing but it's a platform to execute your commands. And this is the one that will interpret your commands and then pass it, convert that to the kernel of your OS. So shell is something which is responsible to take the commands from your user and pass it on to the kernel and execute it in the kernel and get you the results back. So without shell, human or a user cannot interact with the Unix platform. Shell has got their own language. So you can just compare these shells with the languages that you have learned so far, if you have some. For example, if you need to learn PL/SQL to learn how to connect to your DB. Likewise, you need to learn shell to how to interact with the Unix platform. So these are some of the shells available. And each and every OS, means if you say Linux, if you say IBM, if you say Solaris, has some shells by default in them. So without a shell, there is no terminal in the Unix platform. I won't go in much details with the shell types, as it will be more inclined towards Linux administration. Bash shell is a default one for all Linux platform. Here, that's why I said in the prerequisite only that you need to have a Linux platform, Linux OS, so that we can proceed. You can proceed with the course. So you can have multiple types of shell, but Bash is the default. In your Linux platform also, you will be having multiple types of shells, but Linux will be the default. And if you go through the documentation and see here, what all shells are available right now in your Linux platform. In your, how do you see which OS is this? So this is 7.5. And what all shells are available in here? As I told you, it supports these many platforms. What are the platforms? Let me log off from Oracle and let me be in root. What are the platforms? SH, Bash, which is an extension of SH. Then you have, and this is the location where it is available. Then you have TCSH, CSH, KSH. These and some other also are available. Now, how do you come to know which is the default shell currently being used? You need to write echo $shell. So, as I told you earlier, Bash is the default shell used for Linux platforms. So, in here, the default shell is Bash. Now, if you want to know what is a default shell for your Oracle user or any user in here I'm taking the example of Oracle itself. So, how do you come to know that? You can cat etc slash password pi. I I believe you know the meaning of pi, because if you are checking some processes in your pmon or smon, likewise, that time you will be typing the command ps-ef pipe pipe grep pmon or grep smon. So you can see in here the default shell for my Oracle user is bash. That means as soon as Oracle user logins to the system, he will be using the default shell. Now, what are the advantages of bash? As you go through this, you can see that it is interactive, as you can write interactive or non-interactive shells. You can use conditional or arithmetic statements, aliases. It is nothing but a nickname, and likewise these are the advantages of shell. Now, how do you redirect from one shell to another? The default shell, if it's bash, let me come to my OS. The default shell, if it is bash, you can redirect to the other shell. If you want to redirect, just type the shell name. So let me log in. Let me currently, in which shell am I in? I am in bash shell. Let me go to cord shell. So I just typed cord ksh and I am in my cord shell. So if how do you need to come back from your cord shell? Just type exit and you are now in your in your default shell. So every shell will have its own set of commands and syntaxes and options. There will be common commands for shells, like date is one of the command which is common for each and every shell. Let us now go back to our slide with our presentation. And how do you execute the commands? Now, how do we execute commands? What is a command basically? As in the previous example, the date which we typed returned a result. The date is a command. These are predefined commands, as I told you earlier. And that's why it's executing so simply. Can you execute date 1? Let us try date 1. No. Why? It, it's saying the command is not found, as it does not see any command with date 1 because it's not a predefined one. Now you can create your own commands through scripting. So whenever you are executing a command, bash determine the program that has to be executed, and it will be compiled inside the kernel and then will be executing it. Every command you execute will be assigned with a process ID. to top in here. So in this top and see the process IDs from here. This will help to accept the request and process the command and give you the output. You can see the process ID 1 is bootstrapping procedure. With Control C you can exit. You can see this is the system D, which is the bootstrapping procedure, without which you won't have your OS at all. And right now in here also you can see what all processes are running. And if you see in here, you can see the top command is running with the process ID of 8253. Now let's go back to our here to our presentation. The shell built-in commands. You can see here there are three types of shell built-in. Bash supports three types of built-in commands, which are bourne shell built-in, bash built-in commands, and special built-in commands. The bourne shell built-in commands you have break, cd, continue, eval, export, and likewise these many commands are there. In bash built-in commands you have alias, bind, command, declare, echo, enable, help, let, this. And the special built-in commands, when bash is executing in POSIX mode, the special built-ins differ from other built-in commands in three respects. And special built-in commands are found before shell functions during command lookup. Now executing a command, uh, executing program from a script. Having understood the built-in commands in bash, you need to understand a very important term called shebang. Many of us, if you ask many of you database administrators, they won't be knowing the term what is shebang, but they will be using it in their daily day-to-day life for to write any scripts. So what is shebang? Shebang is hash exclamatory. It is a set of hash exclamatory and it will tell you the script to run in which shell. So hash exclamatory slash bin slash bash slash bin slash ksh slash bin slash sh. Likewise, you need to run, you need to say. Shebang is something you need to specify on the first line of the script, which will define in which shell the script needs to be executed. Next comes the building blocks. It is nothing but the way you actually prepare your shell script. How do you build your shell script? Please remember, whenever you are writing your shell, syntax is very, very important. So if you go by these points, and I will let you know what all these points do tell us. The shell reads its input from a file, from a string, or from the user's terminal. So if you need some input to be given to the script, definitely you can do that. Shell script has got the capability of taking input from user and then act and execute according to it. Next comes input is broken up into words and operators, obeying the quoting rules. This will be covered in our chapter 3 also. These tokens are separated by meta characters. Alias expansion is performed. Whenever you give some input, it will break that input into words and operators, and then it will pass that to your script, and then it will execute it there. Next, the shell parses, analyzes, and substitutes the tokens into simple and compound commands. Whenever you give some input to the script, it will then parse it and it will break into the simple parts and will assign it to the shell inside the specified shebang. Bash performs various shell expansions, breaking the expanded tokens into lists of file names and commands and arguments. That is internal functionality of shell. How it basically divides the complete job into parts. Redirection of is performed if necessary. Redirection operators and their operands are removed from the argument list. Redirection is performed if necessary, for example, from one script. If you are calling different script, it will go to that script and it will come back to the original script when the internal script's execution is done. So the redirection from script to script, argument to argument is basically taken care by your shell by default. Commands are executed. Whatever you type inside your script, even a single dot, even that will be executed. So make sure whatever you write inside your script has a meaning. And if there's no meaning, you will receive errors and your script will break off from that error point. It won't continue to run henceforth. After that, it won't be running. So it executes line by line. Optionally, the shell waits for the command to complete and collect its exit status. Next comes the shell command. Now, if you give, for example, ls pipe more, if you can see here, ls pipe more, it just came these many things in here. If you are having many more values in it, then what will it do? This is where we call redirection. Output of the first command should be given in as input to the second command. Output of ls is given to input of more. Next comes our shell function. You can define your own functions inside a shell script and you can call those functions whenever you wanted that to be executed. Shell parameters. For each and every functions and your complete script, you can define your own parameters. Parameters is nothing but you can also call it as a variable that will be actually stored in some value for you. And depending on the value that you store for the variable, you can actually act on the further steps inside the script. Next comes our shell expansions, where we have brace expansion, tilde expansion, parameter and variable combined substitution, arithmetic expansion, word splitting, and file name expansion. You use braces only in conditional statements. Tilde expansion is used in loops or while loop. Double for arithmetic expansion, you need double braces. Now let's go to our console, and in here let me log into Oracle. So currently I am in Oracle. How do you see where my path is? Like PWD. And in here, let me see what all documents I have. Let me make a directory. mkdir is the command for making the directory, mkdir scripting. Then let me go to scripting. cd scr, then I press tab. That's why the full name came in there. Now let me cat etc host. So cat is a command and etc host is the argument. Now, how does this cat command work? In case you need to verify whether the command you plan to execute will work or not, you need to use which. So, I'm giving here which cat. So, it is showing here that the cat variable, that cat command is present in bin. That's why it is executing on its own. So if you are able to see the result of which command, that means whenever you type a command called cat, it will be executed for sure as it is there in the output of which. Now if I run which code, it is saying that which is executing from user bin, usr bin which, and it has no code in these directories: usr local bin, usr bin, usr local sbin, usr sbin, home oracle dot local bin, home oracle bin. Why is it only searching in these paths only? Because if you give echo dollar path, it will be, these paths will be present in there. So there is a variable called path in the OS by default, which has got all of these locations separated by column. Now let's create a script called Oracle date, and let me create the script, and let me give the file name the shebang. What was the shebang? Slash bin slash bash, and then and save the file. One more thing you need to remember in here is the file needs to be executable file. So is this executable? No. Let me change the permissions in here. Right now, this is an executable file. So will this work right now? Let me see. It ran. It ran from here. Like this, it will be running. But like this, Oracle date command is not found. Because in here, why this ran? Because I gave the path. Dot slash means the path till where it is. It means right now the path is home Oracle scripting, means slash home slash Oracle slash scripting, then Oracle date. That's why it is running. But if you just simply give Oracle date, it is not running, and it's all saying that a command is not found, because it is still home Oracle scripting is not in our echo dollar path variable. So right now what you need to do is, let me see my database. It's in here. Let me run ora env and set my database. Now this has been set. Let me see what all path we have in here. We have these paths available in here. Okay. Okay. Now, if I place this in here, cp Oracle date to my this variable, to my this path. Now, will this work? Oracle date. This is still not working. Let me go in there. We do not have any directory actually present in there. Let me check. Let me put the file in my Oracle home and now run the script. So this is giving us the result because I have placed this in the location which is mentioned in our path variable. So in case you want to create your own defined commands, you can do that with the help of scripting. That is what it is being shown in here. So that is all about today's session. And it is a very basic session. As I told you, many of you will be knowing scripting, but this is totally intended for the freshers who doesn't know anything, who is unaware of your database, of your uh, basic knowledge. This is intended for those freshers itself. Now next comes our creating and running the script. This we'll be covering in our next video, so please stay tuned, and please do like and subscribe my channel and share the video if you like it. Thanks a lot for watching this video. Please take care. Thank you.